Hello, this is George from George's Music Blog, and today I'm talking about the 1997 EP from Squarepusher, Big Loada. This is part of a series of videos I'm creating on Squarepusher's discography, and you can find links to more of those in the description below. As always, I'm coming at this from the perspective of a fan. I've been a fan of Squarepusher's music for a long time, best part of 25 years. He is one of my favourite producers, performers, musicians, artists. So if you're a Squarepusher obsessive like me, hopefully you'll find my perspective interesting. Gonna get hassled by a fucking fly. So if you're a Squarepusher obsessive like me, hopefully you'll find my perspective interesting. If you're newer to his music and looking to find out a bit more about what it's all about, then you've come to the right place. Big Loada was one of the first releases by Squarepusher that I got my hands on compact disc back when I was around 17 or 18, about the same time as I got the Hard Normal Daddy album and Go Plastic. And I'll say up front, it is one of my favourite releases by him, and in fact one of my favourite releases of any artist. I just think it's, absolutely stellar release. So don't go into this expecting a completely unbiased review. Now, Big Loada was released on Warp Records, the label that was putting out the vast majority of Squarepusher's music at that time. It came hot on the heels of the Hard Normal Daddy album. Check out the description below for my video on that. In the US, the release included 3 additional tracks taken from the Port Rhombus EP, and I'll speak a little bit about those, but it's the original UK release with 7 tracks that I consider to be the classic one. That's the one I'm familiar with. And in reality, the 7th track is just a 40-second outro. So really, we are talking about 6 tracks, clocking in at just under half an hour. But in that half an hour, Squarepusher manages to redefine his sound and set a new benchmark for the possibilities of the experimental breakbeat, let's not call it drill and bass, style that he was operating within. It is an outstanding slab of tunage with no fat on it whatsoever, just a condensed hit of bold, forward-thinking, exciting, and just outrageously fun music. Hard Normal Daddy was a successful fusion of Squarepusher's jazz influences with the ravier acid house side of things, defined by the Roland TOB 303 bass synthesizer. Big Loada leans much more towards the rave breakbeat end of the spectrum, although in a way it actually utilizes just as much bass guitar, if not more, in a way that is deeply innovative and integral to the music, so that the bass literally is the bass in Squarepusher's warped take on drum and bass. I tend to view it in a similar way to the Richard D. James album, the iconic release by Aphex Twin that came out the year before. Not in the way that the 2 records sound, they're both quite different. The Richard D. James album is much more organic and earthy sounding and quite odd compared to the sort of urban, harsh urbanness of Big Loada. But both releases, like I said, they clock in at just around the half-hour mark, and they are both a concentrated dose of wizardry from each artist at the respective peaks of their powers. Now let's get into the details, and where better to start than where the EP does, with the opening track, Journey to Reedham, 7 AM mix. One of Squarepusher's best known and best loved tracks. Every time I've seen him play live, he is finished on this track, making it very much his calling card. I always imagine it to be the soundtrack to a journey home from the end of an all-night rave, this being the 7 AM mix. Growing up, as he did, in Essex and living in London, going to raves outside of London in the countryside and suburbia around London, surely a key part of Tom Jenkinson's youth. Reedham is in fact a village in Norfolk, so quite a bit further out than that. I don't know if there was a rave once there back in the day, or rave scene out there back in the day. Maybe someone out there can shed some light on that. I don't know what the story is there. But anyway, it opens with this kind of bleepy computer game, arcade game style melody, very much in keeping with the 8-bit aesthetic of the sleeve, and that's what gives the track its slightly kind of E'd up, sort of wired vibe. This is then tempered by this just lovely, there's no other word for it, this lovely melody which has this soaring, kind of drone-like effect, almost like an electric guitar tone, which is being held and then sustained. It's uplifting, it's boundlessly optimistic, it's positive, but it's not in any way cheesy whatsoever. As a very broad generalization, I'd say most of my favorite electronic music tends to be on the more melancholy or circumspect side, but Journey to Reedham is an outlier in that it is just unapologetically uplifting, positive sounding. The beats are incredibly distinctive. The drum break has this sound like it is literally being squeezed or squashed, you know, kind of like when you squeeze a balloon and you get that slightly harsh kind of squeaking sound. It literally sounds like they're being sort of forced through a small tube. Then you've got the bass drum or whatever it is right at the bottom of the mix, which sounds like a big metal barrel with a ball in it being rolled down a hill in a good way. I don't really have the technical knowledge or language to describe exactly what's going on there, but the percussive rhythm on Journey to Reedham is very distinctive and almost in a way I'd say unique. It's an absolutely awesome track, one of the best, one of my favourites by any artist in electronic music. On to another iconic Squarepusher track, which is 4th on the disc, and that's Come on My Selector. This is harsher and more abrasive sounding than Journey to Reedham, but just as much fun. You really get the sense as well that Jenkinson had a lot of fun creating this track, just pushing breakbeats as far as they could go and seeing how fast he could play his bass guitar alongside. It opens with the iconic Think break, which is sampled from Think About It by the soul artist Lynn Collins, which is, yeah, it's an iconic sample. You'd recognize it as soon as you heard it. It's been used in countless tracks across genres, spanning house, hip hop, rave, acid, all across the spectrum. Here it's pitched up a lot faster than it normally is, and it just serves as the gateway to the insanity which unfolds over the course of 3 or 4 minutes. The bass guitar here is relatively untreated and it gives the track this brilliantly unpredictable, funky, jazzy energy and adds this kind of lovely, organic, throbbing warmth to the undercarriage of the track. Squarepusher has said in an interview that the reference to him being the daddy was present here before he'd heard Aphex Twin's Come to Daddy, which came out at a similar time, which means it is just a coincidence, I suppose, that both artists had a track referencing them being the daddy at a similar sort of time. Obviously, on Come to Daddy, that's coming from the mouth of the demonic ghoul, which narrates the opening portion of the track. Whereas on Come on My Selector, I guess it's Jenkinson's voice, or Jenkinson himself, who utters the immortal line at 2 minutes 35, "I'm the fucking daddy," before unleashing the apocalyptic climax. And in that moment, really, it's hard to disagree. Next, I want to talk about another of my favourite Squarepusher tracks, and that's Massif, Stay Strong. I've never seen him play that live. I don't know if he used to play it back in the 90s. I never got to saw him that long ago, but I feel like it kind of gets underrated as a track. Like Journey to Reedham, it has this beautiful, sunny, joyous energy about it, and the bass guitar is employed in a very unusual way, serving as the melodic lead of the track with all this explosive, crazy soloing, and it's run through some kind of effect, which again gives it this sort of 8-bit digital feel. And that's over the top of, some crazy bombastic breakbeats. Another absolute pearler of a track. Track 2 on the disc is Full Rinse, which has more of a straight up drum and bass jungle sound. Although again, you've got this sound like the breaks are being pushed to the absolute limit, like the drums themselves are being tightly squeezed. It's an effect that crops up again and again throughout Squarepusher's music. If you listen to a track like Menelek off Ultra Visitor, then you might see what I mean. The sleeve notes credit an MC Twin Tub who supplies Ragga style MC vocals. This was in fact a questionable character who lived next door to Tom Jenkinson for a time in North London and would pop round every now and then to do things like show off his knife collection. His true identity has now in fact been lost to the mists of time. And since I've mentioned most of the tracks, I might as well just cover all of them off. So the Bodybuilder is another dense breakbeat driven number in a similar vein to the Fat Controller off Hard Normal Daddy. The melodic component consists of this almost atonal kind of droning, which sounds like the effect of various knobs on a filter being tweaked to modify the output. Then we've got bubbling 303 synths and all this kind of hyper feedback, wails of distortion, and again that sound of the drum hits being squashed and squeezed, altogether a deeply visceral piece. The final proper track, aside from Jacques Malchance, which is just a 40-second outro, is Tequila Fish, which is probably the most chill track on the EP, although it does have some hectic portions too. It alternates between a half-tempo beat with this really groovy, head-nodding bass line before flipping up into a jungle tempo with pitched up breaks and a sample of someone going DJ, which I believe is probably taken from an old Casio keyboard sample bank. There's a key change or something like that towards the end of the track where Tom introduces another melody similar to the one used in Journey to Reedham that plays out in that psychedelic kind of droning style. This one is a little bit more circumspect but still super lush. I'm always expecting it to come back in again towards the end of the track, but Tom just closes things out with that same groovy head nodding bass line. Now I'll just talk about Port Rhombus briefly. Like I said, it wasn't on the UK release, but it's an excellent track, so it's definitely worth talking about. Much more soothing than the rest of the EP, it opens with a sparse electric piano line, overlaid with some fairly unadorned acoustic guitar, which gives it a much softer and dreamier character than the rest of the harsh industrial sound of the EP. Tom brings in the amen break again, but it is absolutely sort of micro chopped to precision, so the drum rolls just spill forth in this endless cascade, kind of like torrential rain falling on a tin roof, to the point where it's so intense it actually just becomes soothing and bleeds into the melodic energy of the track. As I never listened to this track in the context of the full release, it occupies quite a strange part of my brain where it is just free of any context, and the track itself occupies a very secluded and dreamlike feeling, quite distinct from pretty much all the rest of Squarepusher's music. On reflection, Squarepusher is one of those rare artists who is both extremely prolific and extremely consistent, and there are other points in his discography that match this in terms of quality, but that time around 1997 it's undeniable he was at one of the peaks of his powers. He put out an awful lot of music in a short space of time, and nearly all of it is absolutely exceptional. It's experimental, it's deeply original, but also incredibly fun and joyful. His later work would go on to be more inward-looking, more cerebral, and at times more almost self-indulgent. Not that I've got anything against that, but this era just sounds like he's discovering new techniques, he's pursuing new ideas, and just having an awful lot of fun doing so and sharing the results with the world. It was also a time when electronic music was going through a huge explosion driven by changes in technology and the complete splintering of genres, and it just seemed like anything was possible. Big Loada is like lightning in a bottle from that time. I know it's deeply cherished by many fans. If you're watching this having not heard it before, then I can imagine it would sound, if not dated, then definitely a product of its time, but I would heartily recommend you check it out. If you're still watching at this point, you clearly have more than a passing interest in this kind of music, so I'm pretty confident you would find something to enjoy. I don't really tend to rate or rank albums, but if I did, this would be 5 stars out of 5. Absolutely stone cold classic. Check it out. I'd love to hear what you think about it. Otherwise, that's it from me. Please check out my channel for more of the same. Please like the video if you're still watching at this point. Otherwise, see you next time. Peace out.